Hey guys, what's going on? Justin Masson here with Nintendo Dads with a little bit of an interesting video. So I want to talk about this difference between iteration versus innovation. And the reason that I want to have this discussion is because of how much conversation is occurring around Xbox S Series and PS5 and all this stuff. And we're getting this information, Jeff Keighley's showing us stuff, and we're seeing game reveals, and we're seeing videos, and there's so much in the comments and online that people are like, that's it? That's all? And we're seeing the reveal of the Xbox, and the reveal of controllers, and people are like, that's it? And what? And I want us to start thinking about the difference between iteration and innovation. And the reality is that where we are right now with game consoles, with generation cycles, is iteration, not innovation any longer. To be honest, the two, Xbox and PlayStation, have kind of stopped innovating from a hardware perspective for a while now. Let's be honest, we all probably know what the Xbox controller is going to look like. It's going to kind of look like the current Xbox controller. As a matter of fact, you can use, I believe, your old Xbox controllers, but it might look a little bit different, just slightly. And if you look at the PS5 controller, it looks just like the PS4 controller, but just slightly different. It's because it works. It's because that is an iterative cycle versus an innovation cycle. So why do I say this? And of course, what's the Nintendo perspective? Well, my argument is that Nintendo is actually innovative for the most part. Now, you're probably like, well, hold on a second. You have an absolute bias. Nintendo is not innovative at all. First, you've come to a channel called Nintendo Dads. So, yep, there's bias. So you decide how you want to deal with that. Don't at me. If you want to have a healthy conversation, we can. Nintendo's a great example of innovation. Now, let's be very clear here. When you innovate, you don't always succeed. Let me say that again. When you innovate, you don't always succeed. What's happened over the cycles is that when we hear about a new console, PS3, PS4, PS5, whatever it is, we get excited. We begin to create expectations. We begin to think about what it could be. But the reality is that those core fundamentals, those designs, don't really change that often. Controller is a controller. The black box, gray box, silver box, whatever color box it is kind of going to look the same. A disc has to go into it, so there has to be a drive or whatever it is. So why do I talk about like Nintendo? So Nintendo does innovate. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, none of their consoles, minus, I would argue, maybe the NES to Super Nintendo, really look the same in any way. There's always a different format and visual look to it, right? Whether it is the, kind of N64 is kind of elongated lower frame to the GameCube's literally cube, right? And then to the Wii U, this white kind of very small, slick device with waggle, right? To then the Wii to the Wii U, which is then this like Fisher-Price gamepad controller that kind of looks sort of like the Wii and the Wii U, but then it got confusing because there was an innovation and it was just iteration. And in that, branding got confused and messaging got confused and it failed. Now, again, what I'm being clear here on is innovation does not necessarily mean success. And Nintendo has had failure. They absolutely have. The Wii U was a colossal failure. There are some great games on it, don't get me wrong, but the Wii U failed. It absolutely failed. Now, out of that failure, we then get something like the Switch, which you can argue is a fantastic and mind-blowing success as it is right now. But again, the reason I say this is iteration versus innovation. Right now, much like our phones, video game consoles don't really innovate. And specifically in relation to PlayStation, Xbox. Those are two titans. They're at each other all the time. Nintendo's over here looking in the corner doing something completely different, but PlayStation and Xbox are always titans. They're hitting each other. Games, same games. Third parties are the same. They've got some different IPs, some exclusivity. Those are great. it's all graphics. Do you know what I mean? Like the graphics are there, the online connectivity is there. Like they're playing in the top tier. But when you're playing in the top tier like that, the risk of innovation at this level, at the top tier, no one wants to miss a beat. No one wants to be the person that innovates and goes crazy off the track and the other team takes the win. So what do? Well, you kind of keep with what you know. The designs will be kind of the same. The specs will be better, of course, right? Like we're talking teraflops and SDs and stuff that I don't know about. But for the most part, like under the hood, it's going to look good, which is kind of the problem that we're experiencing now. People are seeing graphics, they're seeing gameplay, and they're like, wow, this is the next generation. This all kind of looks like previous generations or this generation. There's nothing too shiny about it. The reality is that the gameplay doesn't really change, but how closer we are getting to reality is what we're looking for. Those are the things that seem to matter now with teraflops and graphics and hard drives like that. So what's my point here? Well, the point here is that we have to be okay with iteration. Your phone is a great example. The next generation of Samsung or Apple phone, guess what, are all going to look very similar. There's going to be some key functional differences. There's going to be the camera, maybe a different spot. Maybe the home screen's gone. But for functionally, 90% of it's going to be the same. It all stays there. It's iterative. It's no longer innovative. So what do big companies have to do? What do video games have to do? Well, the reality is if the two titans are up here and they don't want to change, they don't want to alter this course, they want to stay iterative here because they know it sells, they know it works. Of course, you're buying the console, you're getting hyped about the next generation. It works here. So what do? Well, they have to find innovation in different ways. And that's really what we're starting to see. This is where the innovation is not in a controller. The innovation is not in a console home box. The innovation is different. Xbox is innovating through their services. xCloud's a great example. Game Pass, that is an innovation. That is where they can take a risk and be innovative in a space that can actually change how we look at gaming. That's innovation. That's not iteration. That is actually trying something completely different, something completely new that can have ramification and ripple effects in the industry. That's where it's happening for them. Of course, iterate on your hardware, innovate on your services. And when you look at something like PlayStation, where is their kind of innovation? Well, if I'm being honest, their innovation may be a little bit different than their hardware. Their innovation is VR. That's the space that they're working. That's kind of their playground. You guys worry about your services thing over there, Xbox. We've got this over here. So they're both innovating in different areas, but they're iterating in the same area, which is consoles, right? Is the console race. And Nintendo, well, as has been Nintendo for almost 25 years now, they're in the corner, minding their own business, doing their own little thing, and not really getting caught up in that race. And they'll innovate the next time the next console comes out. Because the next console for the Nintendo, we don't really know what's going to look like. Now, it could look like the Nintendo Switch again, but if history dictates itself, it's going to have a different look. It's going to have a different input for control or for players. It's going to be handled and looked at differently. That's kind of where Nintendo does it. They don't iterate, they seem to innovate. And they seem to kind of change the dynamic. But innovation has huge risk. It all depends on where a company feels comfortable risking. Do they feel comfortable risking at the top when they are huge development costs and cycles into these consoles and the amount of money and R&D? Do they want to innovate there, or do they want to innovate somewhere else and try something that the risk is not necessarily as high? And I think that's what we're seeing. So I guess here's my closing thoughts as I'm just about 10 minutes in. As you begin to think about the next generation of console cycles and we see more information from Xbox and PlayStation, don't be disappointed. Don't be upset. Don't be shocked that things kind of look like they have before, but just a little bit different. That's actually what you need them to do. You need them to be iterative there. You need for them to do that. But where they want to, or where you want them to be innovative, is somewhere different. So guys, that's kind of my rant. Hopefully you've enjoyed this kind of let's talk about innovation versus iteration in console gaming and next generation. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.